Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. I'm super thrilled to talk about the Mandalorian show. I mean the Book of Boba Fett show. Dude, it doesn't even say Boba Fett. It says The Return of Mandalorian in the episode title. Whatever, we're talking about the show. I gotta say right from the beginning, this was an excellent episode, but we're gonna return to this but at the end of this video, but let's discuss the content of this episode, see what it's all about. Spoiler alert, guys. If you didn't catch the episode yet, please turn away from this video now. Come back when you see it, and we'll get the chance to discuss. Drop a comment in the video section below. I'll reply to all of you guys. I'm really curious what you all thought about this. Anyway, let's start from the beginning. We begin in this butcher shop. This looks like Guy Ritchie's version of very dark and sober and like really foreboding atmosphere. I really enjoyed the beginning of this episode tonally. It suddenly feels mature. It suddenly feels grittier. So it's a little bit different from a last couple of episodes that we had. Perhaps it's the scenery. Perhaps it's the sunny side of Tatooine. It kind of gives you that a different feel. Here, there's a lot of tight and close spaces. And of course, right from the beginning of the episode, Din Djarin walks in. We saw and heard the preview music, his tune playing at the end of the last episode. So it was really no surprise. And I really enjoyed that they bring him in just the same way that Ahsoka was introduced in The Mandalorian Season 2. They don't beat about the bush. There is not like surprise reveal. He just walks into the episode and it's all focused on him. And as he's walking through this butcher shop, there's these really cool aliens. What I noticed about them, their outfits and garments, some of them are wearing caps. Some of them are wearing these butcher aprons. It's kind of interesting. It's a very grounded kind of look of them. You still can't believe that you're in a different planet, like an alien world, but there is a lot of gravitas and like common visual cues with our reality. So I kind of like that. It works really well here. He walks in. Obviously, he wants to get this bounty. He's like, hey, I really enjoyed when he pops that chip and Hollow comes out. He's like, I'm here for this guy. Like, who? Who is this guy? He doesn't even look like me. So that was a tense moment with a nice comedy intermission. That worked really well. With the Disney-era Star Wars, we all talk about it as fans. Comedy is on and off. Sometimes comedic scenes and moments work really well. Other times they're well-intended, but they don't quite land. And I think Star Wars sequels are a prime example of that. There's quite a few jokes that work really, really well. Other jokes just don't land. Here, I would say for the entirety of this episode, the comedic relief and a little bit of slapsticks we see later on, they really work and they land well. Of course, we have this major beginner action sequence. I really enjoyed that. It was really tight, compact, and that's how I like my action in Star Wars. It's so nice and sweet that it doesn't overstay its welcome and you want more of it. You know, by the time it's over. Same with Din Djarin's confrontation with Moff Gideon, right? In Season 2 of Mandalorian. It was such a great duel, but it was quick and to the point. And after it's over, you're like, oh man, I wish there was more of it. And then after the episode was over, I bet many of you guys skipped back a little bit, back to that scene and rewatched it over and over again because it felt so good. Here, once again, it felt right. And I really enjoyed how the directors are addressing that Din Djarin is still pretty green with the Darksaber. He can wield it, right? But he's not very accurate with it. He's quite a slugger. He just waves it around and he even wounds himself, which once again, I really enjoyed that. And I sort of jumped ahead of myself and said, ooh, I really hope they develop that a little bit more in the episode. And then they talk about why does he do that? Isn't he the badass Din Djarin? I hope that it's tied in narratively and they explain why this happened. And of course they do. Anyway, he grabs the bounty and he goes to this place where we see that he's on this disc world or ring world, whatever you want to call it. It's actually a pretty common, popular idea, concept in hardcore science fiction where there's like a ring world, either a station or a planetoid, wherever it may be. Anyway, it looks freaking spectacular, guys. When he's walking, he's wounded, he's like kind of limping a little bit. He's going to deliver his bounty. They show visually this planet. They show the surface, they show the streets. I really enjoy the moment where he walks into the elevator, he's like staring at an alien. Just beautiful looking. And a lot of us are discussing the cyberpunk kids, how they don't really fit to the environment of Tatooine. They kind of feel out of place. the aliens and the citizenry that you see in this episode, they really feel that they belong on this planet. Excuse me, guys. It really feels that whatever kind of new place they tried to create with updated, fresh Star Wars look and feel to modernize the show, to modernize the franchise in general, it works really well. They scored some major points here. It just feels tight. It feels like Din Djarin belongs in this place. And he's there, he's delivering the bounty. Once again, he walks in, there's a couple of guys sitting there who's like, hey, why don't you sit down? Have a good time. Again, giving us a little bit of sense how people are on this particular ring world. They're more casual. There's like, hey, this is how we do business here. Sit down, let's have a talk. Versus Tatooine, where everybody's like at each other's throats right away. So it's a different vibe to this place, and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, we know that Din Djarin is on a mission here. He grabs this bounty. They know that he's not completely said goodbye to Grogu here. He's still thinking about the little kid. He still wants to see him. And he's on his way to go and see the return of the Mandalorian. So it's not just him alone. Now we see Din Djarin find his way. He's using his visor to get this identification marks. And he makes it into the secret vault. Of course, we reunited with the armor lady and Paz Vizsla. So they too survived, and there was kind of like a little bit of an emotional reunion there. And we get a lot of Mandalorian backstory. And what I really enjoyed about this episode, it's a union of Star Wars legends and Star Wars canon. They're kind of bringing the two together and building the bridge across the two. So I think there's a lot of Dave Filoni's influence there. He's tapping into the legends aspect of the Mandalorian culture. And of course, the armor lady, she states like, hey, do you know about your past? Do you know about your people? The Empire was here barely for 30 years and it's gone. And she's appraising the Darksaber, and she says the Mandalorians were here for 10,000 of years. And when you look at the old retro content of the Mandalorians, if you check out the Wikipedia or if you check out some YouTubers who do extensive Legends videos of Mandalorians, they are about at a time of 10,000 years ago. And of course, the major conflicts with the Jedi begin around 7,000 years and the conquest of the Mandalore the Great. And of course, partially, we see stuff from Star Wars Rebels show where the first Mandalorian Jedi, Tar Vizsla, is mentioned, the forger of the Darksaber. And that it was forged 1,000 years ago. That's a little bit of a newer content that we see from the Rebels show. And once again, it just feels so seamless. The writers of this episode, they have combined the two together. Like, they have no problem talking about something from the Legends. Hey, here's Mandalorian history 10,000 years ago. And here's a little bit from the Rebel show. It feels organic. It doesn't feel all over the place. Very tight writing. I got to compliment them on that. I wish the rest of the show had such strong writing that pushes the story forward, and all the characters are saying their lines in character and just developing the world a little bit more. And of course, there's this duel with Paz Vizsla. It's something that was to be expected. He's like, hey, only the one who wins the Darksaber in honest combat, in duel, has the right to wield it. And I'm going to challenge Din Djarin to this duel. I really like that. But before we get to it, we see him practice. The armorer lady, she practices with him. She's calling out the names of different moves that she wants him to try. And of course, for those of us who know a little bit about the lore surrounding the Darksaber, it responds to force sensitives. And Din Djarin has quite a difficult time wielding it. That's why he wounded himself earlier in an action scene in the beginning of this episode. And she's saying, stop fighting the Darksaber. You gotta fight me. So basically, I don't know whether Din Djarin is going to be revealed to have like some force sensitivity or an attunement, but it will be interesting how that is resolved. She tells him, look, stop fighting the saber. You have to feel it. I almost felt like she's going to say you have to feel it, almost like Yoda says to Luke in the Empire Strikes Back, but of course that didn't happen. But there's some interesting relationship happening about the sword owner and the sword itself. And of course, after he is victorious over Paz Vizsla, he's asked the question where he has removed his helmet or not, and he hesitates for a little bit, and then he says, yes, I have. And once again, we're given more Mandalorian lore where the lady tells him, look, you gotta go and wash yourself in the waters beneath the mines of the Mandalore. I'm like, oh, dude, we're gonna be back on Mandalore in the Mandalorian show, I guess. It's probably not enough time to develop it here. We only have 2 more episodes left in the Book of Boba Fett. But that will be cool where they take that story thread next. So he has to redeem himself. His quest is not over. So here we see a little bit more of an inner conflict. He still wants to see Grogu. He still needs to redeem himself. He still needs to learn how to master the sword. So in a single episode, they have developed Din Djarin a little bit more, and I really, really like that. We cut away to Tatooine. Of course, Din Djarin, he books a flight to Tatooine. He wants to go and learn about his ship, what happened with Razor's Crest. And we cut away to the Tatooine. We're reunited with Pelimoto. I really like the mechanic lady. She was quite charming and cool in the Mandalorian show, and now she's making a return here. She's just cute. I love the lines that she says. I love her little quirky personality, what she's up to. I love how she talks to Din Djarin. She's like nonchalant. She's like, she doesn't care if he's a Mandalorian or not. That doesn't intimidate her. She's like, hey, I couldn't find your ship, but I got a replacement. But before we get to talk about the ship, guys, I was struck with a little bit of fan service and Easter egg that I felt. Because the little droid that pops out, the BD, he's like, oh, BD is here. Obviously, he's from the Jedi Fallen Order video game. But it makes sense how he would end up there. Tatooine is a scavenger's world. It's a frontier world. And it's makes you kind of wonder, okay, if he left Cal Kestis' service, if something happens with Cal Kestis, so he starts kind of some wandering little droid, and he ends up here. I mean, this is how R2-D2 and C-3PO end up on Tatooine, by seemingly like this sheer luck and just misfortune. So this little droid is here. She doesn't call him BD-1. So we don't know 100% if he's indeed the same very droid from the Jedi Fallen Order, or if he's just a similar model. But just the way that he molts, the little antennas, like puppy ears, you sort of feel it's the same one. I was like, anyway, I feel so much connection with him. Like, oh man, I wanted Cal Kestis so much to be the one who answers the call to Grogu. But of course, we got Luke Skywalker, and the fans exploded. Fans really enjoyed it. But I was the one who was like, oh man, I really wish they picked somebody from the expanded universe, the kind of Jedi we didn't see in live action films. Now let's talk about the Razor's Crest replacement. I suspect that you guys, the huge prequel fans, were like up in the air about this. I myself completely enjoyed it. She's like, hold on a second. I didn't have a heavier ship, Razor Crest. I said I have a replacement. And before Din Djarin turns up, like, I'm not interested. Where's my ship? She's like, hold on a second, hold on. Let me just introduce you. And she unveils the freaking Naboo Royal N1 starfighter that we see in the prequels. And those were like some of the slickest ships in Star Wars. I would say they, in terms of design and look, they give X-Wings run for their money. It's just such a slick design, beautiful ship. And of course, they need to rebuild it. It's just sitting there. She says, look, I got all the parts. Here you go. Here's a monkey wrench. Help me repair it. I really like that as well. I really enjoyed the dialogue between the mechanic lady and Din Djarin, that he knows his stuff about repairing ships, she knows her deal, and together they amplify and make this ship better. Also, the montage is very effective because they show how the droids are involved and why the ship is built so fast and how they use their technology, those hollow projections. They show, hey, where does this part go? And they show it. Very effective montage. It wasn't too long and it wasn't too short. It was just there for the right amount of time because the episode needs to move on. And of course, after the ship is completely rebuilt, we see that she's taking it out, and she says, hey, why don't you take it for a spin? And I really enjoyed that rugged feel, that chrome finish that kind of represents Din Djarin. I think this particular ship suits him better than Razor's Crest because it's unrefined, it's unfinished, it doesn't have a paint job, sort of harkening back to who Din Djarin is at this point in his life. He's unrefined, he's still a foundling, he needs to learn more about his culture, he needs to master his inner self and master the Darksaber sword. So the two complement each other so well. And for the time being, he's going to be alone. He's not going to have Grogu at his side. So one-man fighter pilot in this kind of like old school retro ship, I really, really enjoyed it. Of course, he takes it for a drive. Of course, we go through Beggar's Canyon. Of course, we see the Womp Rats. I felt that it wasn't just pure nostalgia. It was like a mini version of the pod race scene. It was effectively done because it stands to reason if you're like a pilot jock, where would you test your ship? Beggar's Canyon is right there next to Anchorhead. It kind of makes sense that pilots take their ships there for a ride to test run them, right? It totally made sense to me. It didn't feel like cheap nostalgia. It didn't feel like the episode just wanted to push my button. I didn't feel the same with the BD droid as well. I don't know, for some reason, it just felt right to me. Once again, I want to reiterate the point. I wish that the rest of the show was so well thought out. This is what makes me a little bit frustrated about the Book of Boba Fett, as much as I'm having fun with it. And same with Mandalorian, is that unevenness. Some episodes feel clearly much more thought out and much better written, much better directed than the others. I'm like, why can't every episode in this show be this good? Why do we have to constantly juggle directors? Is that the problem? Maybe you need to cast one director and one showrunner and focus on consistency instead. I don't know. Anyway, I really like that scene there, and then he flies into the stratosphere. He's like in planet's orbit, and those two X-Wings pilots are there from the previously there. It's like, hey, your voice sounds familiar. Again, a nice little interesting callback to the Mandalorian. I like that. It totally made sense. And by the time he lands, of course, I didn't expect Boba Fett to stroll in and say, I need your help. I need a muscle. Obviously, he's too busy managing his empire. It's Fennec Shand there. He's like, hey, I need a job for you. And I like that Din Djarin pays respect and he says, tell him it's on the house. I'm not going to take the money. He helped me. I'm going to help him. Right? The Mandalorian creed. This is the way. We got to look after each other. So I really like that aspect of Din Djarin's character. So that was very cool of him. But, right, in the beginning of this video, I said there's one but. I think it's an excellent episode. I think it's one of the best Book of Boba Fett episodes. Why is it in Book of Boba Fett? Like, why? Okay, I could understand if they chose a specific storytelling style in the Book of Boba Fett. I said it in my previous videos. What if they spent an entire episode, per episode, introducing a villain or a character like Black Chrysanthemum, Din Djarin, spend an entire episode building that character, and then via kind of like Sam Jackson Avengers mode, he walks in. It's like, hey, I'm Nick Fury, or I'm Boba Fett. I'm here to hire you because I need a job done for me. That would make sense because each episode you're focused on a different character. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, I said, would be to focus an entire season of the Book of Boba Fett spending the time with the Tusken Raiders and establishing that culture and establishing that bond, building it deeper, building and making us understand the criminal underworld of Tatooine before even Boba Fett starts making moves. That would make also a lot of sense. But this episode just feels too much off from the rest of the Book of Boba Fett. It just doesn't make sense. Until this episode, we never spent another episode where some character is being developed on so much. It was always Fennec Shand and Boba Fett. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, and the rest of the characters are orbiting around them, right? Story-wise. But here, it completely diverts. It honestly feels like they filmed an episode during the season 2 of Mandalorian production, and they said, oh, well, you know what, let's stick this one over here because we don't want to reveal too much over here what Din Djarin is going to do with the Darksaber. Let's leave it for later. We're going to introduce it here in the Book of Boba Fett. So I know there will be fans who will find this as the next target, and they will start, oh my God, you see, they ruined it. Even though the episode is good, the show is bad, they did this, they did that. Some people just always want to rant. They always want to, they're looking for problems. That's their job. They want to go in there and just diminish the fun for everybody, like piss in your salad and say like, oh man, this show sucks. Disney don't know what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to do that. Why? Because I had tons of fun with this episode. Just this one but. I really don't understand their general direction here. I don't understand the concept of having an entire 7-episode show focus on Boba Fett and Fennec Shand, and then just one episode completely spins out of the loop. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, the Mandalorian Creed. Maybe, I guess, perhaps if they tie that aspect of Boba Fett's life back into the show, that would make sense. Because in the Legends books, Boba Fett eventually becomes the Mandalore. He accepts his fate. He's like, look, I gotta lead these people. I gotta assume responsibility. I will be the Mandalore. He doesn't have Darksaber, but other Mandalorians start looking up to him. And there's one little snippet in this show where they show the destruction of Mandalore, where these Imperial bombers are flying over. They're completely devastating the city. Oh, and I forgot to mention that little Terminator shot where these droids are walking by, Imperial droids, and they're shooting everything in their sight. 100%. You guys know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are fans of Terminator films, Part 1, Part 2, when they show the future war, this shot is a clear homage and like a nod. James Cameron, we appreciate you. We're fans. Let's put one of these shots in the Star Wars show. It totally works. It makes total sense. The destruction of Mandalore happens. And the Mandalorians in Legends books, they sort of become these vagabonds, these gypsies of the galaxy, who at one point come together and they find this planet, they find this world where they settle down with his Beskar armor, they assembled it, and they said, we need our leader back. We need Boba Fett. And Boba Fett comes in, he steps... So I'm assuming this is the only narrative thread that I'm able to extract from this episode. If they take all of that Mandalorian lore that they told us in this episode, and they bring it back into the fold and relate it back to Boba Fett, then I'll be, okay, I see. I got ahead of myself a little bit. I didn't understand what the showrunners are doing. Now I get it. And guys, perhaps it's not going to happen at the end of the season. It's only 7 episodes long. What if there's more? I'm down to see more of Book of Boba Fett. There's definitely room for improvement. It's not an ideal show. And I guess the most frustrating part for me is just the episodes feel very, very different in quality. This was by far one of the best. I would say episode 2 and now episode 5 are my favorite ones. I really enjoyed when they spent time with the Tuskens. I really enjoyed just the content of this episode. The ring world looked phenomenal. The fights were dope. Din Djarin training was awesome. Din Djarin discovering the Republic Naboo fighter ship was amazing. Him flying through Beggar's Canyon. All of that content resonated with me personally. It was really good. Anyway, guys, I want to hear what you have to say. I really want to hear how are you taking this Din Djarin episode in the middle of a 7-episode Book of Boba Fett. I hope I get to reply to you all. I know we have a lot of to discuss. I'm really, really curious. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, you're looking forward to my other reviews of the Book of Boba Fett. I'm also doing reviews for the Ewoks show. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell button. I really appreciate all of your support, guys, and all the time and all the comments that you give me. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.